everybody, I'm Ryan, this is The Will to Make, and today I'm going to show you how I built this beautiful stand from a pallet. So I started off this project by pulling apart this half of a pallet that was left over from my pallet wood deck. I used a pry bar and a hammer for this, being extra careful not to damage the wood and leave marks. Once all the pieces were pulled apart, I needed to hammer these nails back out of the wood. With the ones that would start to bend, I used a pair of needle nose to support the nail. Some of these boards had huge cracks on the ends, so I ran some wood glue and worked it down into the cracks, then let it dry. I first started on the shelves, so I ran 6 boards through the table saw to clean up one edge. Next I moved my fence over to the final width of my shelves and ran each board through. Now with each board cut down to the width, next was the length. I started by chopping off one end of each board. I then measured the length and set up the stop on my miter saw to allow me to quickly and easily cut all 6 boards to the same length. Now that those were cut down to the final size, I moved on to the legs of the shelf. With one of the longer pallet boards, I cleaned up one edge on the miter saw. I then measured and cut to the final length. Out of this one board, I will get both of the back legs. The same could be done with this next board for the front legs, except I left this a little long for a later step. Now they could be cut to width, again by trimming one side and then splitting the board in half to give me 2 legs per board. With that, the back 2 legs are at the final shape, but the front 2 still need to be cut to allow it to sit at an angle on the floor and up against the back legs. I first set the miter saw to around 9 degrees and cut one end off of each board. Then, measuring up from that cut, I made another 9-degree cut running parallel with the first. In order for the front leg to sit up against the back, I need to make another cut. I first measured it out and marked my cut with a speed square, then made the cut on my bandsaw. Next, I need to make some shelf supports. I cut a board down to a rough length on the miter saw. Over on the table saw, I cut this board into 5 pieces, 2 for the bottom shelf, 2 for the middle, and the last one to cut in half to make 2 pieces for the top. I marked the final length of each and cut them on the bandsaw. I wanted to add a 45-degree bevel on the front just to make them look a little nicer, so I marked out the 45 on each board. And again, I cut them out on the bandsaw. All the pieces were now cut and ready to be sanded, starting with 80 grit up to 220 grit. I will also have links to all the tools I use in this video in the description below, so please check them out. Once everything was sanded, it was time for assembly. I marked out where my shelf support would be on the legs, and with pre-drilling I screwed these supports to the legs. I didn't show myself adding glue here, but I came back and added some later to give it more strength. The same was done for the middle and bottom shelves as well, then I mirrored this on the other set of legs. With both leg assemblies complete, I glued and screwed each shelf to the legs. I used 3 boards on the bottom, 2 in the middle, and 1 up top. For finishing, I sprayed each shelf with multiple coats of spray polyurethane. Once this had dried, I used some drywall putty to fill in the nail holes on all the legs to give them more of a smooth surface. The next morning I sanded all the putty smooth. To protect my finish on the shelves, I added some painter's tape before I painted the legs. The last step was to add 2 coats of white paint to the legs. And with that, this project was complete. I love how I was able to turn an unusable, ugly pallet into something beautiful and useful. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.